The stars looked different from the viewing deck of the stellar Voyager. Ethan Miller stood with his hands behind his back, watching the unfamiliar constellations. It had been 3 years since humans discovered faster-than-light travel, and only 1 year since the Galactic Confederation had accepted Earth as its newest member. "Captain Miller," a voice called from behind. Ethan turned to see Lisa Adams, his lieutenant, and the only other human assigned to this ship. Her uniform looked too big for her, just like his did. The Confederation hadn't bothered to make properly fitted uniforms for humans yet. "You should see their faces in the mess hall," Lisa said with a small smile. "The Dracarians were betting on how long you'd last before asking to be sent home." Ethan sighed. "Let them bet. We got our orders." The Confederation had classified humans as Class C sentients, physically weaker than the hulking Dracarians, less intelligent than the telepathic Mindari, and technologically far behind the Xelians. Humans were seen as just another bipedal species, unremarkable in every way. "The ship captain wants to see us," Lisa said. "Something about our duties." They walked through corridors designed for beings much taller than themselves. The ship hummed with technology humans had barely begun to understand. Crew members of various species moved aside as they passed, some looking down with curiosity, others with barely hidden dismissal. Captain Zorak of the Xilian Empire waited in the command center, standing nearly 7 feet tall with silvery skin that reflected the light. He looked down at the humans with 4 blinking eyes. "Ah, the Earth representatives," he said. His translator made his voice sound metallic. "We have assigned your roles. Lieutenant Adams, you will assist in maintenance level 3. Captain Miller, despite your military rank on Earth, you will serve as operations support in Sector 6. Ethan kept his face neutral. On Earth, he had commanded the U.S. Horizon, one of humanity's most advanced vessels. Here, he would essentially be a glorified assistant. "We understand, Captain," Ethan said. "We're here to learn and contribute however we can." Zorak seemed surprised by the lack of protest. "Very well. The stellar Voyager begins its mission to the Outer Rim tomorrow. The Confederation wishes to establish new outposts in that region." After they were dismissed, Ethan and Lisa found themselves in a small crew quarter they would share. The room was clearly an afterthought, converted from a storage space. "Maintenance level 3, Lisa said, sitting on her bed. "I'm a certified quantum engineer, and they've got me checking air filters." Ethan unpacked his few belongings. "This is what we signed up for. Humanity's first steps into the galaxy were never going to be easy." "But they don't even see what we can offer," Lisa argued. "Just because we can't lift as much as a Dracarian or process equations as fast as a Xelian doesn't mean we're useless." "We'll show them," Ethan said, "not with complaints, but with work. Humans have something these species haven't seen yet." "And what's that?" Lisa asked. Before Ethan could answer, the ship's alarm sounded. A voice came over the intercom, speaking the Confederation's standard language. "All crew to stations. Priority message from Outpost Theta. Unknown contact detected." Ethan and Lisa exchanged glances. Their first crisis had arrived sooner than expected. When they reached their assigned emergency stations, the view screen showed a distant space station surrounded by strange, shifting shadows. The Mindari communications officer, with her characteristic blue skin and large eyes, looked troubled. "Signal lost from Outpost Theta," she announced. Last transmission indicated unknown hostiles. Captain Zorak straightened his tall frame. "Set course for Outpost Theta. Alert Confederation Command. We will investigate but not engage." As the stellar Voyager changed direction, Ethan watched the distant shadows on the screen. Humanity might be new to the galaxy, but something told him that whatever waited at that outpost would change everything. For now, he and Lisa were just people in the crew's eyes, unremarkable and untested. That was about to change. The stellar Voyager dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Outpost Theta. The station hung in space, parts of it dark and damaged. Small objects floated around it, debris and possibly bodies. Ethan stood at his operations console, far from the main command area where Captain Zorak and his senior officers assessed the situation. Though relegated to a minor role, Ethan carefully watched the sensor readings flowing across his screen. Life signs detected on the station, announced the Cillian science officer. Approximately 23 survivors, mostly in the central hub. And the attackers? Asked Captain Zorak. No clear readings, replied the science officer. There are unusual energy patterns throughout the lower sections. They do not match any known species. Lisa entered the bridge and moved to Ethan's station. She wasn't supposed to be there, but nobody paid attention to her. They've got me fixing air scrubbers while this is happening, she whispered. What's going on? Ethan showed her his screen. Something attacked the outpost. They're calling it the Void Swarm based on survivor reports. The captain is planning a rescue mission. On the main view screen, they watched as Captain Zorak organized a team of Drakarians, the strongest and most physically imposing members of the crew. The plan was simple. Dock with the station, form a defensive perimeter, and extract the survivors. They're leaving the survivors in the outer sections, Lisa said, pointing to a different reading on Ethan's console. Look, there are at least 5 life signs in the maintenance tunnels. Ethan checked the readings. You're right. They must not be registering on the main sensors. He raised his hand to get attention. The bridge crew ignored him until he stood up. Captain, there are additional survivors in the maintenance sections, Ethan said. They don't appear on your main scan. The Mindari first officer frowned. The maintenance tunnels are too narrow for a proper rescue team, and too dangerous with unknown hostiles present. We'll follow the established rescue protocol, Captain Zorak decided. The central hub survivors are the priority. The rescue shuttle departed. On the screen, they watched as it successfully docked with the station's main airlock. The Drakarian team entered in their heavy armor, weapons ready. This isn't right, Ethan said quietly to Lisa. Those people will die waiting for protocol. Lisa looked around the bridge. Everyone was focused on the main rescue operation. There's a maintenance shuttle in Bay 4. It's small, meant for exterior repairs. They shared a look of understanding. 10 minutes later, they were inside the small maintenance shuttle, approaching the service airlock on the far side of the station. No one had stopped them. Humans weren't important enough to monitor closely. This is against at least 12 Confederation regulations, Ethan said as he piloted the shuttle. Lisa checked her portable scanner. The survivors' life signs are getting weaker. Whatever this void swarm is, it's affecting life support in those sections. They docked at the small airlock and entered the station wearing basic environmental suits. The corridors were dark, emergency lights casting red shadows. Something black and oily seemed to move within those shadows. This way, Lisa said, following her scanner. They found the first survivor in a sealed maintenance room, a young Mindari technician, injured but alive. She looked at them with surprise. You came, she said weakly. The others said no one would risk the maintenance tunnels. We'll get you out, Ethan promised. Can you walk? As they helped her up, a warning came over their communication devices. The Drakarian team was under attack. Something had surrounded them in the central hub. Their heavy weapons and armor seemed ineffective against enemies that moved like liquid shadow. All personnel returned to the ship immediately, ordered Captain Zorak. The rescue mission has failed. Ethan and Lisa exchanged glances. We still have 4 more survivors to find, Lisa said. Ethan nodded. Let's move fast. Behind them, something dark and formless began to flow through the cracks in the corridor walls. The void swarm had noticed them. The darkness moved faster now. Ethan and Lisa helped the injured Mindari technician through the narrow maintenance tunnel, the shadows of the void swarm sliding along the walls behind them. The others are this way, Lisa said, checking her scanner. 4 life signs, all in one compartment. The station groaned around them. Power systems flickered. Emergency lights pulsed red, then died completely, leaving only the lights on their suits to guide them. Captain Zorak to all personnel. came the voice over their comms. The Drakarian team is retreating. The Void Swarm has overwhelmed the central hub. All shuttles return immediately. Ethan tapped his comm. Captain, this is Miller. We've found survivors in the maintenance section. Request 10 more minutes to extract them. There was a pause before the captain responded. Negative. The Stellar Voyager cannot risk waiting. Return now or be left behind. Lisa looked at Ethan, her face visible through her helmet visor. They're leaving us. Then we'd better hurry, Ethan said. They'd reached a sealed door. The scanner showed 4 life signs inside. Lisa tried the control panel, but it was dead. No power, she said. We need to force it open. The Mindari technician spoke weakly. You can't. Those doors are designed to withstand explosions. Ethan examined the door. Maybe we can't break it, but we can trick it. He removed a small tool kit from his suit pocket. Every system has a manual override. Humans still designed for failures. While Lisa watched for the approaching Void Swarm, Ethan worked on the door's edge, finding a small panel. Inside was a simple mechanical lever. He pulled it, and the door slid open just enough for them to squeeze through. Inside they found 4 survivors, 2 Xilians, another Mindari, and a Drakarian with a badly injured leg. They looked up in surprise at the human rescuers. The ship is leaving, Ethan explained quickly. We need to move now. The Drakarian, nearly twice Ethan's size, struggled to stand. I cannot walk. Leave me. Not happening, Ethan said. He turned to Lisa. We need a plan B. We'll never make it back to our shuttle in time. Lisa studied her scanner. There's an emergency escape pod 2 sections over. It's small, but it might fit all of us. Through the gap in the door, they could see the darkness of the Void Swarm approaching, flowing like oil across the surfaces of the corridor. Let's move, Ethan said. He and Lisa helped the Drakarian, supporting his massive weight between them. They moved as quickly as possible through the dim corridors. The injured aliens watched in surprise as the 2 physically weaker humans refused to leave anyone behind. The pod is just ahead, Lisa said. The escape pod was designed for 2 Xilians at most. Fitting 7 people would be nearly impossible. We can't all fit, one of the Xilian survivors said. Watch us, Ethan replied. He began rearranging the interior, removing non-essential panels and equipment. Lisa, help me with this. Working together, they transformed the tiny space. The Void Swarm was only meters away when they finally squeezed everyone inside and sealed the door. Lisa hit the launch controls. The pod shot away from the dying station just as the darkness engulfed it completely. In the cramped pod, the aliens stared at the 2 humans who had saved them against all logic and protocol. Why did you come back for us? Asked the Drakarian. Your captain ordered retreat. Ethan checked the pod's systems as they drifted through space, because that's what humans do. The emergency beacon activated, sending their location to the Stellar Voyager. On the tiny view screen, they could see the ship still in the area, despite the captain's threats to leave. They waited, Lisa said with relief. As the Stellar Voyager moved to retrieve them, the rescue aliens continued to watch the 2 humans with new interest. These weren't the weak, unremarkable beings they had dismissed. In the face of the unknown horror that had destroyed an entire outpost and defeated the mighty Drakarian warriors, it was the humans who had succeeded. The galaxy's perception was beginning to shift. The mood on the Stellar Voyager was tense. The ship moved away from the destroyed outpost at maximum speed, the darkness of the Void Swarm still visible on long-range scanners. Ethan and Lisa stood in the ship's medical bay, watching as the rescued survivors received treatment. Captain Zorak entered with his first officer, his 4 eyes narrowed with anger. You disobeyed direct orders, the captain said. You risked this ship and its crew. We saved 5 lives, Ethan replied calmly. Using unauthorized equipment, breaking quarantine protocols, and delaying our departure, the Mindari first officer listed their violations. Lisa stepped forward. With respect, sir, while the main team retreated, we completed the mission. The Dracarian they had rescued spoke from his medical bed. These humans showed courage that shamed our warriors. They found a way when we saw none. Captain Zorak's silver skin shimmered with irritation. The Confederation Council will be informed of this incident. For now, return to your duties. As they left the medical bay, Lisa whispered to Ethan, still just lowly humans, I guess. Over the next few days, news spread about the Void Swarm. 3 more outposts had gone silent. The Confederation fleet engaged the enemy but suffered heavy losses. Nothing seemed effective against the shadowy beings that absorbed energy weapons and flowed around physical attacks. Ethan spent his off-duty hours studying the sensor data from the outpost attack. Lisa joined him in their small quarters, bringing food. You should eat, she said, placing a tray beside him. Ethan pointed to his screen. Look at this. The swarm reacts differently to different energy signatures. It avoids certain frequencies. Like what? Like the frequency our soup lights were using, Ethan said. They followed us but kept their distance. Lisa sat down. So they have weaknesses. Have you told the captain? I tried. He said the Confederation scientists are handling the analysis. A message came over the ship's communication system. All crew were to report to the main hall for an announcement. In the crowded hall, Captain Zorak stood with a holographic image of a Confederation admiral displayed beside him. The Void Swarm threat has escalated, the captain announced. The Confederation has ordered all ships to rendezvous at Deep Space Station 12 for a coordinated response. The admiral's hologram spoke next. This enemy is unlike any we have faced. Conventional tactics have failed. The Council has authorized extreme measures. Ethan listened carefully. Nothing in the plan addressed the weakness he had discovered. After the meeting, he approached the captain. Sir, I've analyzed the sensor data from the outpost. The swarm shows sensitivity to certain light frequencies. The Tsilian science officer scoffed. Our analysis shows no such weakness. With respect, Ethan persisted. The evidence is in the data. My report has been noted, Captain Zorak interrupted. The Confederation has the best scientists working on this problem. Your maintenance duties require attention, Miller. Later, in a quiet corner of the mess hall, Ethan and Lisa met with the survivors they had rescued. The group had formed an unusual bond. They won't listen, Ethan said in frustration. The Mindari technician, Nira, touched her temple. I sensed something while we were on that station. The swarm isn't just physical. It has a consciousness. It feels hungry. A hive mind, Lisa suggested. That would explain how it coordinates. The Dracarian warrior, Krell, leaned forward. If it thinks as one, it might be vulnerable to psychological tactics. In my culture, we use battle cries to confuse our enemies. Ethan looked up. Psychological warfare against a hive mind. That's not in any Confederation manual. Which is why they wouldn't consider it, Lisa said. But humans have been using psychological tactics for thousands of years. Nira's eyes widened. I can feel the ship changing course. We're heading into danger. Ethan looked at the small group. We need to prepare. The Confederation fleet is about to face the swarm with the wrong strategy. When they fail, we need to be ready with an alternative. For the first time, the aliens looked to the humans for leadership. The hierarchy was shifting, bit by bit. The stellar Voyager arrived at Deep Space Station 12 along with hundreds of other Confederation ships. Through the viewing port, Ethan and Lisa watched as vessels of all sizes formed battle groups. The largest Dracarian warships led each formation, their weapon systems glowing with power. Admiral Ryan is requesting all human personnel report to Docking Bay 7, announced the ship's computer. Ethan and Lisa exchanged surprised looks. Admiral Ryan, Lisa asked. A human admiral. They made their way to the docking bay, where they found 30 humans gathered. Every human stationed in this sector of space, A woman in a Confederation uniform with Admiral insignia stood before them. Her gray hair was cut short, and her eyes showed years of experience. "I'm Admiral Susan Ryan," she said. "Until 3 days ago, I was a consultant with no real authority. Now I've been promoted because the Confederation is desperate." She activated a holographic display showing the devastation caused by the Void Swarm. Entire fleets reduced to debris. Colonies gone dark. "The conventional forces are failing," Admiral Ryan continued. "The Council has authorized me to form a human response team. They don't expect us to succeed. This is their way of saying they tried everything before the end." "We've discovered something about the swarm," Ethan said, stepping forward. He explained their findings about light frequencies and the possibility of the swarm being a hive mind vulnerable to psychological tactics. Admiral Ryan nodded. "My team came to similar conclusions. Now we need to act on them." She outlined her plan. While the main Confederation fleet engaged the Void Swarm directly, a smaller group led by humans would target what they believed was the central intelligence of the hive mind. "This is Commander Frank Ellis," Ryan said, introducing a man beside her. "He'll lead the strike team. Miller, Adams, you'll join him. Your experience with the swarm is valuable." Lisa raised her hand. "What about our non-human allies? The survivors we rescued have insights too." Ryan smiled. "Bring them. This mission needs everyone willing to think differently." They returned to the stellar Voyager to gather their team. Captain Zorak stood in their way. "You are still under my command," he said. "I have not authorized this transfer." From behind them, Commander Ellis approached. "Actually, Captain, Admiral Ryan has top authority in this crisis. Here are her orders." The captain read the digital orders, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "This is highly irregular. Humans leading a critical mission." "Sometimes irregular is exactly what's needed," Ethan replied. As they prepared to leave, Krell the Dracarian, Nira the Mindari, and the 2 Xelian technicians joined them. More surprisingly, several other crew members approached as well. "We want to join you," said a young Xelian engineer. "The traditional tactics aren't working. Perhaps the human approach will." Within hours, they boarded a small, fast ship called the Defiant. Unlike the rigid, specialized design of Confederation vessels, the Defiant had been quickly modified with a mixture of technologies from all species. Commander Ellis addressed the mixed crew. "Our mission is simple but dangerous. While the main fleet distracts the swarm, we'll penetrate to its center and disrupt its hive mind." "How?" asked one of the Xelians. Lisa stepped forward with a device she and Ethan had built. This transmitter generates random patterns of the frequencies the swarm avoids, combined with chaotic sound patterns based on human music. If the hive mind processes information in an orderly way, this should create confusion. "Chaos against order," Nira said thoughtfully, using the swarm's strength against it. As they prepared to depart, a message came from Admiral Ryan. The main Confederation fleet had engaged the Void Swarm near a populated system, and they were losing badly. Traditional battle formations were being torn apart. "We need to move now," Ellis ordered. "The fleet won't last long." The Defiant broke away from the station, accelerating to maximum speed. On the main screen, they could see distant flashes of light where the battle raged. Ethan looked around at their unusual crew. A mix of species united behind a human plan that broke all Confederation protocols. "Whatever happens," he said, "we've already changed things. They're listening to us now." Lisa nodded. "Let's make sure they have a reason to keep listening." The Defiant raced toward the heart of darkness, carrying with it the galaxy's last hope. The Defiant flew through the outer edges of the battle. All around them, Confederation ships fired weapons that seemed to pass through the dark masses of the Void Swarm with little effect. The organized battle formations were breaking apart as ships tried to escape the flowing darkness. "This is Admiral Ryan to all ships," came the transmission. "Fall back to secondary positions. Do not engage directly." On the Defiance bridge, Commander Ellis studied the tactical display. The swarm is spreading too quickly. We need to find its center. Nira, the Mindari, sat with her eyes closed in concentration. I can sense it. A pattern in the chaos. The swarm is flowing from a single point, like water from a spring. Lisa adjusted their sensors based on Nira's guidance. There, she said, pointing to a dark spot that seemed denser than the rest. That's where we need to go. Through the middle of the battle, one of the Tselians asked nervously. Ethan looked at their small mixed crew. We can't go through, so we'll go around. Commander Ellis nodded in understanding. Unconventional approach. I like it. He turned to the pilot. Take us below the plane of battle. Use the debris field for cover. The Defiant dived, using damaged ships and floating wreckage as shields from the swarm's attention. Their smaller size and unexpected movements kept them hidden as they circled toward the center. We're getting close, Lisa said, monitoring the device she and Ethan had built. The hive mind signals are getting stronger. Krell, the Dracarian warrior, watched with newfound respect. In his culture, frontal assault was the only honorable approach. Yet these humans chose a path of stealth and cunning that was working when brute force had failed. 2 minutes to optimal position, the pilot announced. Suddenly, alarms blared. The ship shook as something dark and flowing attached itself to their hull. We've been detected, Ellis said. The swarm is on us. Outside the viewports, darkness spread across the ship's surface. The metal began to corrode where the swarm touched it. Hull breach in 3 minutes, the computer warned. We need to activate the device now, Ethan said. Lisa shook her head. We're not close enough to the center. It won't affect enough of the hive mind. We don't have 3 minutes, Ellis said. Ethan looked at their damaged ship, then at the tactical display showing the center of the swarm still some distance away. A human solution came to mind. We can't get there, but the device can, he said. He turned to the engineer. The escape pods, can they be programmed for a one-way trip? The Tselian engineer nodded slowly, understanding the plan. Yes, we could put the device in a pod and send it to the center. The pod's too small to be noticed, Lisa added, already moving to prepare the device. And we can trigger it remotely. They worked quickly, loading the frequency transmitter into the ship's smallest escape pod. Lisa made final adjustments while Ethan programmed the pod's course. The hull is failing, the computer warned again. Launch now, Ellis ordered. The tiny pod shot away from the Defiant, speeding toward the heart of the swarm. On their screens, they watched its progress as their own ship began to come apart around them. 20 seconds to target, Lisa counted down. The darkness covered more of their viewports. Systems failed across the ship. The air grew thin as life support faltered. 10 seconds. Krell moved to stand beside the humans. It was an honor to fight alongside you, he said formally. 5 seconds. Ethan and Lisa clasped hands, their eyes fixed on the screen where the tiny dot that was their pod reached the center of the swarm. Now, Lisa activated the remote trigger. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a pulse of energy spread from the center of the swarm, a wave of chaotic light and sound patterns designed to confuse and disrupt the hive mind. The darkness on their hull paused in its spread. Then, slowly, it began to retreat. It's working, Ellis said in disbelief. Across the battlefield, the swarm's coordinated attacks faltered. The flowing darkness became erratic, sections moving randomly without purpose. Admiral Ryan to Defiant, came the transmission. Whatever you did is working. The swarm is breaking apart. Ethan and Lisa looked at each other, exhausted but triumphant. Around them, their mixed crew of species that had once dismissed humans as unremarkable now looked at them with new eyes. The galaxy was learning a valuable lesson about judging by appearances. The Defiant limped back to Deep Space Station 12, its hull damaged but its crew intact. Emergency repairs had kept them alive long enough for a Confederation rescue ship to reach them. As they docked, They could see the station was buzzing with activity. News of their success had spread quickly. Admiral Ryan waited in the docking bay. Behind her stood Captain Zorak and several high-ranking Confederation officials. Their expressions ranged from surprise to grudging respect. Commander Ellis, Lieutenant Adams, Captain Miller, Admiral Ryan greeted them formally. "The Confederation Council wishes to speak with you immediately." As they walked through the station, Ethan noticed how other species moved aside, watching them pass with new interest. No longer were humans ignored or dismissed. Now they were studied. The council meeting took place in a large chamber. Representatives from all major species sat in a half-circle. At the center was the Mindari High Counselor, her blue skin wrinkled with age and wisdom. "We have reviewed the reports of your engagement with the Void Swarm," she began. "Your unconventional tactics achieved what our combined fleets could not." A Drakarian counselor leaned forward. "The Swarm has retreated from 3 systems already. The disruption to its hive mind continues to spread. But it is not defeated," Captain Zorak pointed out. "Our scientists believe it will adapt and return." The High Counselor nodded. "Which is why we have called you here. The Confederation must prepare for the next encounter. And we require human insight." Lisa and Ethan exchanged glances. This was unprecedented. Admiral Ryan stepped forward. "My officers have prepared a series of recommendations. We believe the Confederation forces must adopt what we call adaptive response protocols." "Meaning?" asked Edzelian representative. "Meaning no fixed formations," Commander Ellis explained. "No standard procedures that the Swarm can learn and counter. Each ship, each fleet must be empowered to respond creatively to changing situations." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The idea went against thousands of years of military doctrine. "You ask us to embrace chaos," the Drakarian counselor said. "We ask you to embrace adaptability," Ethan corrected. "Humans have faced countless challenges on our world. We survived not because we were the strongest or fastest, but because we could change and adapt." Lisa added, "The Void Swarm is unlike anything in your records because it evolves. To fight it, we must evolve faster." A murmur spread through the council. The High Counselor raised her hand for silence. "What you propose is a fundamental shift in how the Confederation operates," she said, "but the evidence of your success cannot be ignored." Over the next several days, Ethan and Lisa worked with Admiral Ryan to implement their new strategies. Ships were reorganized into smaller, more flexible groups. Communication protocols were changed to allow for faster decision-making at all levels. Most surprisingly, humans began to be assigned to leadership positions throughout the fleet. Their perspective was now seen as valuable rather than inferior. On the newly repaired Defiant, now designated as a rapid response vessel, Ethan found himself in command with Lisa as his first officer. Their crew was a mix of all species, each chosen for their ability to think creatively rather than follow orders blindly. Captain Miller, Nira said, now serving as their communications officer. "The Void Swarm has been detected near the Centauri outposts. Alert the fleet," Ethan ordered. "But we move first." As the Defiant prepared to jump to faster than light speed, Krell approached Ethan. "In my culture, we have a saying," the Drakarian said. "The smallest stone can start the largest avalanche." Ethan nodded. "On Earth, we say, don't judge a book by its cover." Krell looked confused by the human expression, but he understood the meaning. As the Defiant jumped to FTL, leading the response to the Void Swarm's return, the message spread throughout the Confederation. The galaxy had underestimated humans, seeing them as just another unremarkable species. That mistake would not be made again. 1 year later, the stellar Voyager floated in space above a world that had once been threatened by the Void Swarm. The planet below was green and blue, its cities glittering like stars against the dark continents. The swarm had been pushed back, system by system, using tactics that no Confederation strategist would have considered before humans joined their ranks. On the bridge of the stellar Voyager, Captain Ethan Miller stood beside his first officer, Lisa Adams. The ship had been redesigned, incorporating ideas from all species, but with a distinctly human approach to its systems and layout. Message from Confederation headquarters. Nira announced from her communication station. The last known concentration of the Void Swarm has been neutralized. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Drakarians, Mindari, Xelians, humans, and 3 other species that had joined the crew specifically to learn from the human command style. It's not completely gone, Lisa cautioned. Just dormant and scattered. We'll need to keep monitoring. Always prepared for the unexpected, Krell said with a rumbling laugh. The Drakarian had become Ethan's chief of security and a strong believer in human adaptability. Captain Zorak entered the bridge. His role had changed too. Now he served as an advisor and diplomat rather than a commander. The experience with the Void Swarm had changed him, as it had changed the entire Confederation. The Council has summoned us, Zorak announced. A new situation requires attention. The stellar Voyager changed course, heading for the massive space station that served as Confederation headquarters. As they traveled, Ethan reflected on how much had changed. Human ships now flew alongside the greatest vessels of the galaxy. Human voices were heard in the highest councils. Human strategies formed the backbone of the new Confederation defense protocols. When they arrived, the council chamber was already filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Admiral Ryan, now the head of the Joint Fleet, nodded to Ethan and Lisa as they entered. The High Counselor stepped to the center of the chamber. "We face a new challenge," she announced. "A species from beyond our known space has made contact. They call themselves the Arcturians." A hologram appeared, showing a crystalline ship of alien design. It was beautiful but strange, unlike anything in Confederation records. "Their technology is advanced," the Xilian Science Counselor reported. "Their biology is unknown to us. Their intentions, unclear." The Drakarian Military Counselor growled, "We should prepare our fleets, show our strength." "No," said the High Counselor firmly. "We will not repeat old mistakes." She turned to Ethan and Lisa. "Captain Miller, Lieutenant Adams, the Council requests your insights." Ethan studied the hologram. A year ago, he would never have imagined being asked to advise the highest powers in the galaxy. Now it seemed natural. "We should approach with caution but openness," he suggested. "Bring together a contact team with members from all species, including humans." Lisa added, "Show them our diversity is our strength, that we value different perspectives." The council members nodded in agreement. The lessons learned from the Void Swarm crisis had changed how the Confederation viewed cooperation and differences. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Ryan approached Ethan and Lisa. "The Stellar Voyager will lead the contact mission," she told them. "Your crew represents everything the Confederation has become." That evening, Ethan stood at the viewport of his quarters, looking out at the stars. Lisa joined him, her reflection appearing beside his in the glass. "Remember when we first came aboard the old Stellar Voyager?" she asked. "When they thought humans were nothing special." Ethan smiled. "Now they send us to meet new species and face new challenges." "Because they finally understand what makes humans different," Lisa said. "Not our strength or our technology, but our adaptability," Ethan finished. "Our willingness to try the unexpected." Beyond the viewport, the stars seemed to shine brighter than before. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors or as servants, but as innovators and bridges between different ways of thinking. The galaxy had seen them as just people. Now they knew better.